Thanks for having me again, Coach. Good to be back. Yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah. Glad to do it. Yeah, it's like you were saying. It's always a bit of an uphill battle discussing anything non-martial arts related with Josh and Troy. So glad to be of service. Yep. Yep. Hey, whatever floats your whatever floats your boat. But I'm glad we could do this. So. Well, yeah. We were obviously last night was the NBA awards. You've got obviously you've got MVP, Rookie of the Year, all that good stuff. And well, yeah, let's give it a shot. Same here. I mean, and that's not just because I'm an Oklahoma City fan, which I am, but I mean, it's a historic season. There's no other way to describe it. Westbrook dominated in every facet of the game. I mean, I remember reading an article back when he like broke the record for number of triple doubles in a season, and they basically said, a triple double has been mythologized, it's been fetishized, but it's never been normalized. And Westbrook was doing it every week, and he made it look easy. So, yeah, 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 it was insane. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think, there were a lot of rumblings, both within the Thunder organization and elsewhere in the NBA. They were like, it's Westbrook's show now. He's not sharing time with Durant. He's going to explode. And I think everyone's prediction on that was right in the end, of course. But yeah, obviously a sensational season, and he's just a guy who just works his tail off and does things right off the court as well. So it's good to see someone like him get honored. So yeah, exactly. Oh, no doubt. And obviously, there were plenty of other candidates, like you said. James Harden had a terrific season. Kawhi Leonard. There's not going to be any issue with him with Kawhi Leonard being the face of the franchise now that Duncan is retired and Ginobili and Parker are presumably on their way out. But hey, those guys had great seasons. But obviously, Westbrook just took the cake statistically and overall. So yeah. Sorry. I'd say Leonard. I mean, Harden's fantastic. I mean, I think Harden really elevates everyone around him. But I think Leonard is more versatile because he's a great defender. He can rebound. He can shoot. He's someone who definitely he also elevates his teammates, but he does it in a different way because he's able to make an impact at so many different parts of the court. So I think overall he's definitely going to be in contention for years to come, just because. And it's not just because he's with the Spurs. It's because he knows how to play and he's got the right mentality to get it. And of course, he's kind of unique because he was the Finals MVP before he ever got votes for regular season MVP. So I think obviously he's going to be a great player for them in the future. And as long as he's around, as long as Popovich is around, the Spurs are going to be a threat. So yeah, and yeah, yeah, he's absolutely. for sure. And oh no, you're not the first person to say that, and you won't be the last. But yeah, I think the Rockets are kind of in the same boat as the Thunder. They've been good but not great. I think both of them are going to take a step forward next year because, again, the Spurs are going to be in the mix. Obviously, the Warriors and a few other teams too. But those are the four big teams in the West right now. And I mean, the Clippers just are treading water, and no one else is really a threat at the moment. I mean, plenty of players are stars on average teams, but they just aren't able to. Overall, it's just those four teams. So yeah, I think it's going to be that way for years to come. Like, yeah, yeah. I mean, the Clippers have just been a very. I actually saw an article describing them as dysfunctional today. I wouldn't go that far, but they just like obviously Paul and Griffin they both had injuries. When they're on the court, they're great, but it's overall they should be capitalizing on the Lakers being terrible and the Kings being terrible and all the other teams in the West that really aren't that great. They should be able to again be in that same conversation as the Thunder and the Rockets, but they just haven't gotten it done. I mean, maybe it's coaching, maybe it's managing the roster. I don't know, but that if both those players go, this is going to be a massive missed opportunity for them. Nope. Yeah, yeah, I heard about that too. And, yeah, so exactly. Yeah, for sure. And yeah, and also I assume you saw Bill Russell getting the Lifetime Achievement Award. That was pretty special. I know, right? I mean, yeah. I mean, well, this formal award ceremony. It was the first time they had really done it in this format. I mean, yeah, Russell's a Hall of Famer. Everyone loves him. Obviously, won so many titles with the Celtics back in the day. But yeah, yeah, 11 because he got 11, and then Kareem Abdul-Jabbar got 11. Uh, I want to say it was 11. Yeah, in the well, either way, they were both the big men of their era, and they won. But yeah, I mean, Russell's just someone who is great for the game. Obviously, he's been around for so long. He knows exactly the level the NBA is at these days, and who's an up and comer. He's just someone you love having around, and he's someone who is definitely one of the all time greats, and is and has definitely proved he's got staying power as someone who to this day is still invoked as a legend. One of the first great big men of his era, and obviously a pioneer in that regard. So, yeah. Oh yeah, I mean, oh yeah, 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 true, true. Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah, and you could say the same about Oscar Robertson. I remember, like seeing interviews with him, and people were just like, "Oh, how do you feel that Westbrook's approaching your record?" And he's just like, "Oh, well, hey, I'm happy for the man because he works as hard as anyone." And obviously, when I played, the game was so different, and so many different things, were just fundamentally changed after I played. And yeah, it was definitely. I mean, back when he played, the 3 point line was like it was way closer. And for a while there, it wasn't even most players didn't even bother shooting threes because it was just like, oh, we might as well just get it in close to the rim. So yeah, it was definitely harder to get triple doubles back in his day, but obviously he's someone who's another guy who's stood the test of time as an all time great. And he's someone who grew up in he's from Indiana originally. He grew up in segregated high schools, and had to deal with all that stuff, and made it to the NBA, and eventually again became an all-time great. So he's another guy who was just someone who didn't run his mouth. He just shut up and got to work every time and handled himself pretty well all around. So, and you'll also be interested. He is an organ donor. He donated a kidney to either his daughter or his granddaughter 10 years ago, and he's been a pretty outspoken advocate for charitable, organ donations and stuff like that in the past. So. Amen to that. So. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh yeah. It's good to see. Yeah, it's good to see all that. And yeah, but yeah, like you were saying, although all those all time greats, back. I think that was back when I mean, obviously, basketball is a game that I think, in many respects, has changed the most, decade to decade, out of any American sport. Because, like, I mean, you look at clips from the '60s or '70s, whether it was college, back when UCLA was in its glory days, or in the NBA when obviously the Bird versus Magic in the '80s. But I mean, back then, obviously, it wasn't just the short shorts and the big socks, but it was definitely just the way they played. It was the fundamentals of the game, the plays that were run, the way athletes moved. It was just dramatically different. And obviously, today it's all about the big contracts and the flashy play. But it really is cool to kind of look back at those old highlights and kind of just be a fly on the wall to all these all time greats doing their thing. And I think there's definitely some positives and negatives about that those eras and the modern day era too. I think there's definitely, it's the NBA is great because I mean a lot of people just complain about it, just like, oh, it's all about money, nobody plays defense, blah blah blah. But I mean, these are still the best of the best, and it's cool seeing every decade has their own defining superstars. Even when I was growing up, obviously I don't really remember the Jordan years that much, but obviously everyone knew who he was. Obviously you had Kobe and Iverson and Shaq and all those greats that have now retired and are doing their own thing. But it was definitely the first time I ever really got into basketball was back when like back towards the mid 2000s, like when the Pistons were first getting good again, or when the Lakers and the Sixers were still in the thick of the playoff hunt every year. And then of course that was right around the time these hotshot rookies named Dwayne Wade and LeBron James were, starting to get some headlines. So that was definitely, in my opinion, an ideal time to get involved with basketball. And to be fair, I don't really follow NBA as heavily as I should, but it's definitely, obviously it's against the best of the best, and it's cool to see all these up and comers and all these once rookies become, veteran franchise leaders. It's always fun. It's always fun to watch basketball because there are always these definitive superstars at any point in the game. So, yeah. Right. Something like that. Yeah. Yeah, I saw you gave him a shout out on Twitter. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I thought the same. Like he was someone. Obviously, the Sixers are building franchises around him and Ben Simmons, who was also hurt. And yeah, my best friend back in Lynchburg is a hardcore Sixers fan. So I've been hearing all about this. He's so excited for the future of the franchise. I'm like, dude, Rob, you've been saying that for like 10 years now. He's like, no, dude, I'm just trusting the process. I know we're gonna get there, and I'm like, okay. And by the way, Eagles still suck, dude. Like he and I have always had like a great sports related banter because yeah, Philly sports. But no, he's been really excited about those young players and obviously they had the first pick again this year, and I mean that obviously that's going to be a lot of growing pains at first, but they're definitely recruiting and drafting the right players. Obviously so many players jump to the NBA after 1 year, and they are nowhere near ready, but I think the Sixers and some of the other franchises that had high draft picks this year, I think they do scout really well, and they do really know how to evaluate if a young man's mentally and physically ready to play in the NBA. Because I mean, we talked about this briefly during our March Madness podcast, but it is kind of it's got to be annoying for coaches and scouts to just be like, oh, we recruited this kid, oh, he's gone the next year, got to recruit another kid just like him. So but obviously the NBA, it is a meat grinder compared to college, but I think a lot of these people, a lot of these kids do try to get a decent amount of advice before they jump to the league. I mean, you tend to kind of stereotype these kids as being like, oh, they're just seeing dollar signs. They just want to make it in the NBA. And I mean, that's kind of true. But, there's definitely, I think, a lot of them are more ready than they appear at first. So, time will tell. But, yeah. I went to college for academics, and yeah, I mean, I figured I might as well. I was always looking out of state. I took a visit, and I liked it. I liked the academics, including the film program, and I figured it'd be a pretty good fit for me. Right, somewhat. Yeah, I was. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah. Yep. Well, he has to because he knows they're going to be gone. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think they're, and I actually have been a few years ago. I forget when, but they recently modified the combine rules. Like if you say you do like good but not great at the combine, and not a lot of scouts are biting, you're not getting a lot of offers or interest. You can still go back to school. I think I think the NFL would actually be wise to do that in the future too, because so many kids, they say, "Oh, hey, I'm leaving." They're done. They can't go back even if they want. Once they say they're done, they're done. So I think that's a good development in the NBA. Like again, wade into the ocean, see if there's any interest, and if there's not, come back out and try it again next year. Yeah, 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 yeah. And of course, he had plenty of off-field issues as far as that went. But yeah, I do remember that and how yeah, Ohio State was just kind of on pins and needles. Like, oh, is this guy coming back? Is he not coming back? And or yeah, it's definitely. I think the NFL, it would behoove them to give that a shot in the coming years, I think. Yeah. Yeah. And hey, that sometimes that's the reality check that they need. Like, obviously, most of these players they don't coast through stuff like this, but sometimes there is that one hot shot that's just like, oh, I know I'm ready. Then he does the combine. He's like, oh, maybe I should have stayed. So I do think that's definitely useful. And again, maybe down the road the NFL will do something similar. But sure, why not? Yeah, yeah. We'll go with that. Well, hey, at least I'm not at least I'm not the AFL tribunal, changing rules willy nilly every year. For those who aren't aware, like I'm involved a lot with Australian football here in Los Angeles. We've got a team down here, and I've been a part of them ever since I moved out here. And obviously, we're a group of Americans and Aussies and a few other guys too who play Aussie football. But as far as like as a spectator sport, the Australian Football League is there are all these rule changes that happen and a lot of questionable umpiring decisions that result from them. So it seems like every year there's another boneheaded rule that the AFL comes up with. Everyone is so confused by it, and they get penalties without meaning to get penalties, and it's just a massive headache for everyone involved. And of course, you got plenty of grumbling spectators along the way there. So yeah, not really, but like when they, yeah, yeah, exactly, yeah, yeah. Well, that's a very Pete Rose thing to do. Let's admit it. But no, like, well, I mean, yeah, and that's kind of funny because that you mentioned that because like again, in terms of the AFL, like it's a very rough sport. No pads, no helmets, and it's called Australian rules football. When I show it to all my friends, they're like, "What rules?" Like, I mean, yeah, it's there are a bunch of things that you can't do. Like, you can't shove anyone in the back. You can't trip anyone. You can't, you can't tackle above the shoulders. Like, there are a lot of things you can't do. But I mean, at the same time, there are still players who think they can get away with anything. Like, I remember I was watching a couple of weeks ago Richmond, not Richmond, Virginia, Richmond, as in the suburb of Melbourne, Australia. But yeah, Richmond was playing the Sydney Swans, and Sydney's star forward is named Buddy Franklin. This huge, muscular. This guy's like 6'5", 240, so about LeBron James size, and he's got let's just say if this guy hit you, you'd be out cold, and that like he was about to run up and take a mark, like a catch, and right before he got there, he just casually elbowed his defender in the neck, and I'm like, oh my god, come on, that's a shot, and in the end, the ref didn't even call it. I'm like, come on. And then like 5 minutes later, Franklin gets into a shoving match with the guy who's defending him, and he's just like, I'm just glad these players aren't mic'd. Let's just put it that way. Yeah, like apparently in the last few weeks or so, the AFL is like cracking down on like players actually grabbing other players' jerseys or throwing punches during the game, and I'm like, well, yeah, it happens. There's so many fights in terms of because like there's a lot of leeway. Again, there are plenty of things you can't do in AFL or what you can do, but at the same time, it's not like rugby or soccer. There's no carding system. Like you can be reported at the time of an infraction or a penalty or whatever. But and the umpire will let you know. And then like afterwards, you actually like go to like a legit suit and tie tribunal, and obviously the judges have like reviewed the footage, the film footage of the incident, and they're trying to decide if it was deliberate or not. And if it's upheld, you either get like a 1, 2, 3 week ban depending on the severity, and you cop a fine as well. So. Oh, I wish, but we had last year we played at this large like soccer complex right near Long Beach. This year we're doing something different. Like we just got done with the preseason basically, and we used a bunch of different home fields. We're trying to one of our players, Milo, is on the leadership group at the club, and he's been in charge of like facilities and fields, and he's been trying to nail down one consistent location, and hopefully we get it. So TBD on that. But yeah, basically there's no way we can get a stadium, like an actual regulation size AFL stadium. Well, partially because in Australia they play it on cricket grounds, which are massive. And cricket's just like baseball in that there's like no universal field size. Like they're all generally the same size, but it's not like, oh, it has to be exactly this many yards. Or yeah, it's so yeah, they so basically the average AFL field is like double the size of an American football field, and it's an oval. Yeah, and it's an oval. It's not a rectangle because cricket play. Right. Yeah, it's yeah. So yeah. The glory days. Yeah. 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 Exactly. Exactly. That's 6. That's a goal. Yep. Yeah, it's one. Yeah, it's one, and that's called either just called a point or you call it a behind. And basically, and also that also applies like if you kick the ball and it hits the post, or if you or if a defender like deflects the ball through the goalposts. Like if he gets a hand on it before it crosses. So basically, yeah, and so basically, when you see a final score in AFL, it's it's like goals behinds total, basically. So that's basically how it works. Yeah, no, you have to kick it through. Yeah, yeah, it's yeah, you have to basically the idea of it. Again, it's on an oval, not a rectangle, and it's 18 players versus 18 players. Again, full contact. Um, yeah, it's 18 players on the field and 4 of them on the bench. Um, yeah, so basically, yeah, it's 18 versus 18, and the idea, of course, is to kick goals and or kick it to your teammates. You can kick or punch the ball in any direction, but you can't throw it. And if you tackle someone, you get a free kick. So it's actually a little bit different. I actually have a bar. So yeah, basically like this is a Sharon, an AFL footy. Basically, I bought this when I was in Australia last year. But yeah, basically you kind of hold it, you cradle it in your wrist, and you basically punch it forward so it spins backwards like that. You know exactly. So you're kind of using your knuckles as opposed to volleyball where you're using this part. So it is a little bit different, but that's that's kind of the gist of it. Oh, and every 15 yards or excuse me, every 15 meters or 16 yards, you have to bounce it. Like yeah, basically Oh yeah, when I first picked up a footy, it took me about 3 weeks to master it, without hitting myself in the nuts. So yeah, it was but yeah, basically it's called the running bounce, and if you're running with it in the open field, you've got to be able to take a bounce. So yeah, and as you can see, it's like kind of shaped like a rugby ball, but of course it has laces, and it's not as pointed as American football, but it's not as flat as a rugby ball either. So uh, probably. Yeah, it's probably about the same size, but of course, it's not designed to be thrown. So yeah, it's a little what circumference wise, it's a lot bigger. So oh yeah, I mean AFL, the guys who play in the AFL, they've been kicking this thing since they were 4 years old. So and yeah, it's yeah, and you've got to be able to kick on the run from 50 yards out without breaking a sweat. So I think they do travel farther if you kick it right, in my opinion. But at the same time, it's kind of apples and oranges because kicking in American football is so vastly different. And of course, an American football is much smaller and pointier. So I think, it potentially, I think you can obviously kick an American football really far, like 50 or 60 yards. But again, that's not really. Again, this is designed to be kicked, not thrown. So again, it's kind of yeah. Oh yeah. Yep. Yep. And that's kind of translated over to America recently. I assume since you follow college football, you've seen a lot of Australian punters around. Those guys can kick, and I'm like, well, how did this not happen earlier? These guys have again they've been kicking a ball since they were this high, so why not give them a shot in college football? So Darren Bennett, was his name Darren Bennett? Yeah, yeah, he was actually yeah he was in Yeah, he was an ex AFL player. He played for oh gosh, well, he played back in the day for the AFL. I think it was like the late '80s, early '90s. And one of those days he got a bright idea and he was like, "Oh hey, let's go to America." So yeah, there were a bunch of AFL punters who gave it a shot over here in the NFL, and it's actually kind of funny. Like the main academy that those Aussies that are playing right now, the Aussie punters in NCAA, the main academy that they go to down there is called Pro Kick Australia, and it was actually started by this guy who played in the AFL back in the '90s, got injured, and then he got injured, then he got traded, and then he didn't really fit in well with the new team, and then a few years later he was like, hey, I'm gonna go over to America and try out for the Green Bay Packers, and eventually he did, and he got signed. He played in a few preseason games, but he didn't make the cut. This was like back in 2004, 2005, and then he decided to go back to Melbourne. And but based on that, he got kind of a bright idea. His name's Nathan Chapman, by the way, and he was basically just like, well, obviously when I went over there, there wasn't that much going on with Aussies in college, and obviously since the NFL can sign you today and cut you tomorrow, why not put Aussie kids into college instead? So and he founded Pro Kick back in '06, and he actually recently followed me on Twitter because I try to follow what's been going on with them because I like American football and Aussie football, so it's cool to see guys make the transition, and it's pretty amazing what they do, and they're since they don't have American football down there, their game film is basically just an iPhone video of them kicking a ball, so it's pretty crazy that these guys can get scholarships off that. So Oh yeah, and obviously their accuracy is just incredible. You know, they can look down the field and kick it on a dime, basically. You know, they can roll out, kick it, and it'll land exactly there. And the reason they're so effective, it's not just because of the distance and the leg strength and the hang time. It's because when the ball is spinning in all different directions, like they're trained to kick in Australia, like the punt returner doesn't know what to do with himself. He's just like, okay, fair catch, I got it. So that's just a great weapon to have. I mean, being able to prevent a return while you're also averaging 45, 50 yards a kick, that's incredible. So, really. I can't say that I did. Yep. 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 Nice. Yeah. Mm. Yeah. Actually, no kidding. I actually saw last week that Ice Cube got his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame finally. Yeah, yeah. It was like, oh wow, that's crazy to think about. Yeah, like you were saying, those guys who were legends in the late '80s and early '90s, eventually, like obviously Ice Cube did acting, Snoop Dogg did so many different things. Dr. Dre moved into the singing business game, and yeah, I mean it's amazing that those guys have been able to last as long as they have, and of course, I mean you saw Straight Outta Compton, right? I mean it's a great film, and it's really it's crazy to think about, and definitely cool to see all these guys doing different things. But 3-on-3 basketball, I don't think that's good. You're right. I don't think that's gonna last. So yeah, yeah. Oh, cool. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Mm, yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. 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 Uh, right. Like obviously that's in different sports you can kind of pull that off. Like rugby sevens. Rugby sevens has really taken off in recent years, and yeah, that they were at the Olympics last year, and that's obviously a great way. It's a great way for countries that normally don't play it to be able to field a team and be reasonably competitive, and also it's a great bang for your buck too, because rugby sevens is just like rugby union except with a few different rules here and there, and it's 7-minute quarters. So that means obviously that the games are abbreviated and they're closer scoring usually, and obviously faster paced. And also that means that because they're so short, they're never played in only one game. They're always played in tournament form. So that can as a spectator that can be a real bang for your buck. You can watch like 5 or 6 rugby matches for $40. That's great. And it's yeah, and it's a great, like I said, it's a great way for different countries who normally don't play to be able to get their foot in the door internationally because New Zealand's not destroying everybody in their path. So the All Blacks. You know. Yeah, it's he could be a defensive lineman in the NFL. Yeah. Well, yeah. That's such a huge part of Kiwi culture down there, and like it's again, if you're born, you're playing rugby. It's just such a it's just so cool to see, a country that tiny that is it. They always consider themselves underdogs in pretty much every sport. Like, but in rugby, they're the winningest team in any sport anywhere in the world. So yeah, they've won 77% of their matches all time. So yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, they're legends, and it's just kind of cool to see. Again, such a tiny country to have that one thing to hang their hat on. Well, two things: that and Lord of the Rings. So yeah, but yeah, that's actually I definitely want to go there one of these days. Would love to visit New Zealand. Yeah. It was about 17 hours. It was I had like a 3 hour layover in Fiji, so it was like 12 hours from LA to Fiji, and then 5 more from Fiji to Sydney. So yeah, for Comic Con, I know you're excited. If it's a straight flight, well, where do you have a layover or what? Okay, well that's probably gonna be like 4 or 5, give or take. Yeah. Really? Huh. How strange. Hang on. Hmm. Yeah, I can hear. Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't really. I was. I mean, usually there's like a 1 second delay, but hmm. Oh man, that sucks. But yeah, normal like I said, normally there's like a little 1 second delay or there's an echo or something. But huh. Hmm. Yeah. 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 And I'm totally cool with doing it next week. So yeah. Okay. Okay. Cool. Yep, we did. I have not. I assume I know no one's giving McGregor a chance. Let's put it that way. Ooh, wow. Yeah, he probably will. I mean, but at the same time, I'm not holding my breath. And I really, honestly, I get that this is, going to be a huge ratings win for TV, but I really hope this doesn't become a trend because, boxing and MMA, they're great sports, but they shouldn't. They really shouldn't. I think it's just fundamentally unfair to, people who want to who just want to focus on one. I think, unfortunately, obviously this is depending on how the fight actually goes, but I think it's going to come across as kind of gimmicky, to be honest with you. Yeah, it's just like, yeah, I mean, again, if the people love it, if people are going to buy the fight on TV, or if they're going to watch it at a bar, everyone wins. So, yeah, yep, yep, yeah, yeah, something like that. Yeah, mm, yeah, mm, yeah, yeah. It's no, I agree. Yep, yep, yeah, yeah. I'm not even surprised. Yeah. Well, that's only going to further the point that I was making. Let boxing be boxing, let MMA be MMA. If MMA really wants to be boxing, I mean, like, that's what makes MMA more suspenseful is the grappling and the takedowns. That's what's going to win or lose a fight. And if you minimize that or if you try to take that away, what's the point? So, mm, right? Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's that's the thing. It's a great social event. If someone wants to, invite me over for some beers and hot wings or whatever, like I'm totally okay with watching a fight and just. But it's at the same time, it's just becoming more and more commercialized and getting a little bit away more of the integrity of the sport, kind of. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, nothing really. How about you? Oh yeah, yeah. hmm I know there was some controversy about that, and I think it was the Celtics or somebody who like traded, you know, not traded up, but negotiated a deal with the 76ers. Mhm. Yeah, yeah, something like that. And I think yeah, I mean he obviously played for Washington, which was a good team last year, but they didn't really do much. So definitely an unlikely choice as far as like where he came from, but he's a really athletic guy. He's big, really big for a point guard. Mm-hmm. From Kansas, yeah, yeah. Yeah, he's someone everyone says he's got, all the physical tools and he's just a fierce competitor. That's what everyone keeps saying about him, that he's always competing, he's always working hard and some people don't think his shooting touch is that great overall, but I mean, he's got the size and the athleticism to, be a good forward and he's definitely going to have to work on a lot of his fundamentals, but in just in terms of raw talent, I think he'll make an impact. He's going to need a few years to truly develop, but I think he's going to blossom in time if he's given a chance. So and yeah, hmm yeah. Another guy who's a real hard worker on defense, someone who's obviously fast and athletic and can shoot really well, but he's someone who just again he's got a good all around game. He's athletic. I think he definitely just has that winning mentality that can transform a locker room. And obviously the Kings have they've just been in the cellar for so long, and they need a good dose of enthusiasm. I think he'll bring that. So sorry, no, I haven't. Cool, yeah, absolutely, yeah, yep, mm, yeah. I mean, yeah, but just based on that, based on the players that they had out and based on the new guys they've got coming in, I don't think it'd be super unrealistic to see the Sixers make a decent sized jump. And when I say decent sized jump this year, I'd say, 10 more wins. They're not going to push for playoffs, but I think like I said, I think they've got, a better culture, a better foundation. They're a team that can definitely, they're building a roster the right way. If they add a few more veterans, I think they can definitely, improve sooner rather than later. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think, obviously everyone talks about how the West is so much stronger than the East right now in the NBA. I think there definitely does need to be you know, way more talent in the East, and way more teams who can compete with everyone else. I mean, you've got the Celtics, you've got the Heat, you've got only a few other teams, and I think having these young players, latch on with different franchises and be able to transform them from the ground up. Obviously, that's good for the game, and a few years from now, the East will probably be a lot stronger. So, yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, yeah. Obviously, he was the most talked about, and I'm not just referring to his dad, but everyone was talking about him. He's someone who, again, I was basically assuming he would fall way further, like just based on his dad's antics and how everyone was just, when you're having to deal with a prospect and his dad 24/7, that's a big red flag. And love LeVar Ball or hate LeVar Ball, he did a lot of things that were definitely questionable in terms of capitalizing on his son's newfound fame. But I mean, Alonso himself, he's got tools, he's got length, he's got size. He's gonna be a quality NBA player, but I just wouldn't want to be him, considering he's just gonna have that target on his back all the time, based on what his dad is doing. And I think for a young kid, I think he's got a decent amount of mental toughness. He's disciplined enough, but at the same time, the NBA, like I said, is a meat grinder, and there are so many different variables in play. Obviously the distance, you're traveling a lot of distances, you're, meshing with a whole new team, you're dealing with, all these different, the culture of the NBA is just so different from college basketball. And I think, I think he's a smart kid. I think he knows where he needs to improve. But at the same time, I think psychologically it's going to be, difficult on him, because let's be real, every guy he's going up against in his rookie year is going to, have a few words to say about about his family. So I think he's going to have to watch his back. He's got a lot of potential, and obviously he's from Cali, so homegrown kid, Lakers, getting someone like that in the fold, that's really big. But there does need to be a concerted effort in terms of just making sure he can drown out the noise and just focus on playing ball. No intentional about how to so. Yeah. You're frozen. I can hear you, but hang on. Okay, here you go. Yeah, you're fine. Yeah, yeah.